Hi guys, we're going to do your image critiques for your black and white submissions. Um, Donna's up first here, and she mentions in the text that she sent that she was unable to get Photoshop. She contacted Westlib's IT department, who told her to download GIMP instead because it was free, which is really disappointing. I don't know if they just are not aware that Adobe has made this free through the end of May for any university or school that has a Photoshop license or an Adobe license, or they're just too, I don't know. I'm just very disappointed that they would tell you that. You can, in the meantime, if you need to, you can download a 7-day trial. It used to be a 30-day trial. This is the Adobe website. If you go to adobe.com and just scroll all the way down to products at the bottom and click on Creative Cloud. The first one that comes up is Photoshop. You can click try for free, and then it tells you you have a 7-day trial. You can just click the start the free trial here. It gives you Photoshop and Lightroom for a 7-day trial. I wish it was still 30, but they have changed that now. But at least you can get a week out of it for maybe hopefully 1 or 2 assignments. So anyway, there were some issues obviously with these because of the fact that you weren't able to use the techniques described in converting these to black and white. So we'll look at the color and the black and white versions of each one side by side. This one is okay, but it's, the idea is to make the subject stand out a little more, and without using the black and white adjustment layer that I showed you in the video, you're just sort of limited to whatever you're able to get. So here's the Jeep again. So it reproduces as pretty monochromatic. You're right, Donna, and the one that fared the worst was the one of the flowers, because it is almost the same shade as the wall behind. So how could you have fixed this? Well, if you had been able to use Photoshop and use the black and white adjustment layer, which is found here, you can see that you have control over all of these different colors. So we could have actually taken the yellows up, the greens and the cyans down, and bang, just like that, we've got the flowers popping off of that. On top of that, we might have possibly done a little vignette on this. Let's see where that is in here. And that might be a little strong, so let's back it off a little bit. So yeah, from that to that definitely makes that stand out a whole lot more using that technique as opposed to what you had to use in the free software. Let's see, Erica was next. She mentions that this one she only included because she thought that I think this is a niece, no, cousin. She just thought that she was too cute not to. Oh wait, I'm reading the wrong one. So this is a niece. Okay, yeah. First, the picture of a niece. She's covered in mud. They were playing outside, and she just thought she had to include it. The other two were more for contrast. The grass picture. This is the color version. This is the black and white. Showed a wide range of tones in such a simple subject. And then she said the antenna had a nice shine because of the way the sun was coming down, which made the contrast between the black and white that much stronger. And I do agree. I think that's the strongest of the images. It looks like the noise was built up a little bit. Whether that was unintentional or not, I'm not sure. But definitely as a black and white, that looks pretty interesting. I'm just curious. Let's just look at this one and see if there's anything. Now let's just open that. Anything we could have done to increase that a little bit more, playing with those blues. All right. It did not want to open. There we go. So let's take that black and white filter and let's pull the blues down. and even the cyans. And then there's not a lot of color in the rest of this, but we could actually make that sky almost black, and then maybe add a little levels adjustment on top of that to just to see what else we can bring out. I don't know. It's kind of stark that way, but it is definitely an interesting look at it. I don't dislike what you did with this one, but I just wanted to see if we could go a little further with it. That's probably, to me, that's your strongest image there. These are Kashmir's images, and let's look at, and again, there's no text that came along with this, so I don't know what technique was used in creating these as far as the black and white conversion. It looks pretty straightforward, as it was just a conversion to grayscale, so I really don't know. There was no explanation that came along with them. In looking at them, I think this one would have been pretty interesting because there is some color to play with in here. Let's just take a look and see what we can do with this. So the blues and the yellows are really the two colors that come into play more than anything. Red does a little bit as well. Green, not so much. Cyans, I do like the darkness in that. Let's do a quick save as here. And compare. So I think the one on the left is the one that I did. Has a little more contrast to it, but overall not a whole lot different. So Michaela, I like your explanation. She said, for this assignment, I chose to take 3 portraits of my little brother, who's 9 years old and annoyingly photogenic. I have to agree with you there. You wanted to show the source of light hitting his face and the different values created. And then there was a side note about the previous assignment, which I've taken note of. So anyway, these images are really, really good. First of all, the lighting on him is amazing. I love the viewpoint and the vantage point of this one. I like the fact that you kind of use the split light on him. It's probably window light, but it's done really, really well. I love that. I love that. I'd like to see maybe just a hair more contrast in that one, but this one I really, really like. I think that you've done a great job with the skin tones. Haven't lost any detail, and again, understanding that nice soft light coming from off camera in that direction is a really really pleasing look. So all 3 of those are really good, but I think the first 2 in particular. So Monica's the one who was babysitting cousins, and she said normally there would be a group of kids from up and down the lane coming over to play together, and it just struck me how empty and quiet everything was because of what's going on, obviously. So let's look at these side by side. That one's a little, so the pattern in that screening is kind of interesting, and it's different in the color version as opposed to the black and white version, which is kind of unusual. I love the black and white of this one. I like the baseballs. I think this is a really good subject matter for something like that. It's got a little vintage look to it there, and then the baseballs, especially with a little bit of dirt on them, is pretty cool. So I like the fact that you've done a little bit of cropping, you've done a little bit of work. The texture in this one is really good, really strong. But I think this might be my favorite one. Again, the original composition is interesting. I don't mind that at all. Maybe a little off the bottom would have been helpful. But I like the fact that you've got really good contrast here in the tones of this little treehouse, but without losing any detail. So all of those, and again, I like that one really well too. So pretty good job on those. Sean says that what he was going for was to show the desolation and loneliness that the pandemic has created. Places that would normally be crawling with people out enjoying themselves, like football fields and well-traveled highways, are now empty and devoid of life. I think changing the images to black and white captures this effect more clearly than full color, and you're absolutely right on that. Um, I think I probably would have left the person out, just because I think the effect that you're going for um, is even more dramatic without a person there. And I love the framing effect. I think the framing effect with the gate in front would have been stronger without her as well. But you do have that version, although it does not have the framing effect with it. But I think this one was my favorite from that to that. A lot of good contrast here. I like good detail in the sky. We did lose a little bit in the shadows over here. Um, and that probably could have been salvaged because there is some detail there in the beginning. But overall, good crop on this to crop it down a little bit, make it a little more slimline. So that one looks pretty good too. I'd like to have seen that one just with the gate and the background. So for that reason, I give this one the nod as your better image. Skylar, oh, I think you sent me your text in an email, and I did not. I don't have it recorded here, so I'm very sorry. Um, let's just look at your before and afters. And again, I don't know offhand. I don't know the technique that was used. But again, like the yellow flowers that Donna had, this one you probably could have played with a bit, just to lighten the bear a little bit more and make it stand out a little more. But it does stand out okay because of the color that it is. A little bit of cropping. So it is still it's a little bit blurry. Looks like camera movement subject. Well, yeah, more camera than subject because everything. It's not just the cat that's a little blurry. Everything else is as well. Cute picture of the cat, but you got to watch that sharpness with the camera motion. I don't know what the if it's going to give me any information on metadata as far as shutter speed. Yeah, it looks like about half of a second at f2.9. So that's a pretty slow shutter speed, and um, that's why that happens. So. Oh, let's see. Let me close. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Let me get a new window back here. Let's go back to navigating. There we go. And then the final image is the cat. Definitely cropping this out helped the image. Again, there's a lot of color in that foreground thing, the quilt or whatever that the cat's laying on. You probably could have gotten a little more variation and contrast with what is there, but you know, overall, a couple of decisions that you made definitely worked out. Zach, these are the original images, and we'll just take a quick look at those. Really, really good subject matter for this type of an assignment. Let's look at the black and whites. Actually, let's look at them one at a time. So again, the subject matter is set off. There's really good contrast. There's good texture. Nothing's overexposed or underexposed, so that's a pretty interesting image. Here, same thing. We've got a lot of texture. And these birch trees, I think these are birch, they're always great subjects for black and white. A little bit better day, maybe with some detail and cloud or whatever in the sky, or lack of cloud, whatever, in the background might have been a little better, but overall that was pretty good. So the red truck. Yeah, I might have even taken that a little bit darker. Let's go back to your original. Take a look at that. Yeah, increase, no, we don't want to go up back there. Yeah, I think darker is better because it makes these trees stand out. But I think a little darker on the red truck, with, it's hard to go too dark because you may lose some detail in it. But it's just a thought. Overall, I like what you did with it. I think all three of these images are really good. This one in particular was a great choice of subject matter for this assignment. So that's what we got, guys. I will be posting the next, we're going to try to get the instructional stuff up the morning of what would have been our normal class day. And I do believe that sometime in the relatively near future, we may try holding a class using Zoom. I have a 3-day meeting starting Monday using Zoom, so I'll check it out and see how it works. But especially when we do the review of material right before the exam, I think it's going to be really helpful if we can have some back and forth dialogue and some interaction. It's going to be really hard to conduct that any other way. So we may be doing that in the future as opposed to just these videos, but for right now, that's what we've got. And if you have any questions or comments, you can either leave them in the comments field below the video on YouTube, or email me or text me, or whatever. I'm usually pretty available. So talk to you soon, guys.